Well, Carol, you're what we call a world traveler and a world worker. You've been to many, many countries traveling and working. Can you tell me about some of your experiences?
Oh, yes, certainly. I've been a traveling English teacher, basically. I didn't start that way, though. I started out studying Chinese, and then to finance that, I realized, a lot of my friends were teaching English as a second language, so I got the degree, went back to San Francisco and State University and got that degree, and then went back, went to Taiwan, China, and but my favorite, I mean, among travels, not teaching, teaching everywhere I went was great. I mean, it had its own special, wonderful things about it. But probably Nepal, of all the places to take a break, and I thought was truly international already. Maybe because of the location and the attraction to mountains and just faraway places, and the good food from Asia and Africa and so many places. Even Japanese tea restaurants were there. So
You were in Kathmandu mainly then?
a little bit up in Pokhara, just for a couple of weeks. A friend's birthday.
How long did you travel there in Nepal?
Just 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Well, what season of the year was it?
That's a good question. Well, in Korea, I think it was winter, but there it was like a spring.
Why?
Well, you could in the daytime walk around in t-shirts, and then at night there'd be like snow on the Himalayas. So it was kind of between.
Why? Because Kathmandu was in a valley? Is that why it was?
Oh, Kathmandu was probably, I wasn't in Kathmandu very long. I just had some good food and took a plane up to Pokhara, which is, you know, in the Annapurna range. And I've always been interested in Buddhism, and there were artists there, even though it was a bit commercial. The artists were amazing. I wish I had an example. I've given them to my relatives, halas, you know. But really beautiful Tibetan and different Buddhist images on a screen. So different kinds of screens. They had some kind of synthetic, but also very traditional special paper, anyway, for the artists. But on very young, a lot of young people as artists making good money at that time. That was a while ago.
Were you a hippie?
No, I was after that. I didn't really go to travel teach until, let's see, when was that? I guess early 80s.
Okay.
So that, yeah, I had just missed it, but I got all the benefits, I guess, of the hippies.
So how did you go to Kathmandu? Where did you start and what was your method of travel?
Well, I mean, it was actually very easy and comfortable. I was teaching in Korea, and I think I went in the, even though I'd first gone to Korea in the 80s and started travel teaching, but I think it was in the 90s when I did this, late 90s. So I just took a plane there with my friends, with 3 friends, and all ladies, and one of them had her 50th birthday, and you know, Sheila Conway, and I can't remember the other one's name, but anyway, it was great. It was great.
So how many women were traveling together?
Just 3.
Just 3.
Right.
Did you have any unusual problems?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Especially in Pokhara, it was a tourist center. Even though there were Tibetan refugees coming across the border, so it was also very Nepali too. There were lots of Nepalis.
So
around.
the 3 of you were together in the place?
Yeah. So actually, Sheila, whose birthday it was the one who picked the place, and we were all looking up information about it, and it just sounded so interesting, and might not get back there again. It's so out of the way that we just all decided to go. Right. So.
So what did you do the time when you were there?
Well, took a lot of pictures, a lot of walks. There were some really steep walking trails to peaks, and just talking to local people, finding out what they were doing.
How did you talk to the local people?
English was very
English.
common. Yeah, there were quite a few Indians up there with little Indian Nepali mixes, and Nepalis who had learned English in school and from travelers, and they were it was serious business. They had their hostels, local, just like a B&B for students.
How large was the area for people on top of Nepalis?
Oh, well, this was the mountain top, so probably I didn't see more than a couple of hundred people up there.
How many foreigners were there, roughly?
Oh, there were a lot of foreigners. I would say there were probably more than 50.
What were they doing? They just traveling?
Just traveling, sightseeing. There's a lake up there, lots of rowboats. It's a kind of a vacation. It's a vacation center, and there are also a lot of Buddhist retreat places for meditation up there.
You went to India directly, didn't you?
You could. Most people did, but no. I just took a plane from Korea. Probably went through. I think it went through Singapore. And then up to Nepal.
You flew into where? Kathmandu or where?
Yeah, Kathmandu.
Kathmandu?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That was
So, how about traveling around as three women? Was that unusual?
I
Let's say
didn't
three
really
older
worry
women.
about it. Right. Well, we weren't that old then. I think I was only in my mid-30s.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and Sheila was in her mid-40s. And the other person was younger even. She was in her 20s, so yeah.
Is it unusual, or was it unusual at that time for foreign women to travel around the world a lot?
It depended. Right, that's true. Actually, I remember in Korea, just trying to do day-to-day things like going to the market or shopping for clothes, and it always went better if I brought a friend with me, because it was culturally more acceptable or something. People were smiling more. They had probably figured they would get twice as much money, so probably, yeah. So it's there are a lot of good reasons, I'm sure.
So after you were up in that, what was it, mountaintop, as you said,
Right,
mountaintop, and you went back to Kathmandu then for a while?
Just for a couple of days, and
Then you
then back to work in Korea.
Ah, you came back to Korea.
Right.
So when you're in Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, what did you do for the few days then?
Also, it was so interesting. There were so many different kinds of restaurants and tea shops and coffee shops and things. So wandered around, looked through the market. There's like a big souk there to buy all kinds of travelers, interesting little trinkets and things. So it was more looking than anything else. And then what amazed me was so many faces from all over the world there. Just every kind of face was represented. And I'd never seen that in such a small space before. Years later, I saw that in Dubai, but it's different, This was, this seemed somehow, it was, even though it was a bit commercial, I was going on the tourist trails, but it looked like people who actually lived in Nepal were from so many different cultures, and they were Nepali. They just happened to have heritage from so many different areas, Russia, India, in addition to Nepal, regular Nepalis. And as I said, there were Japanese tourists that married and settled there that I met. And it's very interesting. I thought it was amazing. Like a real Shangri-La,
What about the world travelers? How would you characterize the world travelers?
traveler?
There, in Nepal, Kathmandu.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. Let me think. I guess world travelers. There were different kinds. Some were working on books about travel, and so there was this group of people that seemed very nice and interested, curious. There were a lot of teachers at that time. Maybe I saw them because I'm a teacher, possibly, seemed like. And then there were people involved in NGOs up there in Nepal and in helping children in remote areas with either health or education. So there were a lot of those travel, and then and there were pilgrims into different religions. So there were so many kinds of world travelers, I thought.
What about the range of age, roughly?
Oh, that was the other thing. It was what I remember is that there were a lot of young people, I do admit. So like a lot of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s. But the refugees were a lot of women coming across the border, and they were really all ages. There were some in their 60s and there were some 50s. But usually they were part of a bigger family coming across. And I didn't see any young children there.
Were there any special problems you had when you were traveling around Nepal?
Not at that time, no. In fact, it was tourist friendly, very tourist friendly. And local people were able to guide you to where you needed to go quickly or give directions or draw maps. There were not any big issues at any time, amazingly, I thought. I think we even got sidetracked and visited a tailor and I got some school clothes made, so for teachers, So that was kind of nice, and they did it instantly in 3 days.
How about where you stayed? Do they have hostels there or what?
Yes, they do, and they were wonderful, very clean, basics, big window, bed, desk. It was more, everybody wanted to be outside there, or we did anyway, and so we would just sleep there and then get up and...
What time roughly in the morning?
In the morning, probably around 7, and go out, unless we were going to see a sunrise somewhere on some peak, and then we'd be up at 5. But it was all manageable, even though we weren't professional hikers. We'd done some hiking in Korea, but not that scale. There were definitely real hikers up there with all the equipment, but so we would go the easy way. There would be paths. You could take a taxi to the lower part of a peak and then just climb the last kilometer. So there were a couple of there were at least 2 places like that.
How about the nightlife? Were there dances and music in different places?
There was a lot of music. There was a German bakery. I think we were doing all these sports things outside, like rowboats, and so by night we just ate and
but I mean, was it
stayed
a
out. There were night
dance and music in different places.
Right. I didn't see live music though, whereas I was on the peak. I know Kathmandu has a lot of music. And just because of time and the real, what we were really interested in was going up to those peaks. So.
But did you have much opportunity to talk to some of the other travelers, foreign travelers there?
A little bit, but just really hello and how are you doing, and some basic news types, coffee shop kind of things.
Well, how would you describe Kathmandu if you had to give a quick description of it?
Well, I thought for tourists just dropping in for a couple of days, it was like, it was very festive, family-like. It was like a giant coffee shop, for a better word, but also a bit like Indiana Jones. And so, yeah, it was like, there'd be people playing cards over at the side and, having their drinks, and other people with their coffee or their soda.
Did you see many Koreans in Kathmandu?
No, I didn't. I didn't see any at that time. I'm sure that has changed, but that is interesting.
Many years ago, I had a Korean woman who was working in an office, and she had some time off from Korea, and she had decided to go to Kathmandu on her own.
Oh, wonderful. On her own, yes.
And she mentioned, this is some years ago, but I remember, she mentioned to her, some of the office people where she was going, and they could not believe that, number one, that she was going to Kathmandu in Nepal, and number two, she was going by herself, and number three, she was going to go mountain hiking.
Wow!
And she went there to go hiking.
Oh, that is so awesome.
And she went there, and I don't know, she had maybe 7 days or something, I forget exactly, but when she came back, I asked her about it, and she said it was tremendous. She had a great time hiking, and she went there for hiking.
Wow!
And at that time, I don't think there was many other people going to Kathmandu, particularly young females.
No.
She was in her 20s, obviously. And doing the hiking.
Oh, wonderful!
So do you think that Koreans have discovered Nepal and Kathmandu particularly?
Certainly. I think as somebody who isn't a very good hiker, I mean, I will do the small hills here in Korea, right, and sometimes go in the mountains, but go halfway up and then just do day trips for hiking. So. You're right, professional hikers, yeah, I'm sure.
Well, she wasn't really a professional hiker, she was an active hiker.
Active hiker,
It's a little bit different now.
Well, the other thing is you can join so many groups there and go up, so it's very doable in that way.
So if Koreans want to go there, how long is the trip roughly from Seoul to Kathmandu by plane? Approximately.
Well, it must be faster now. If there's direct, it would be really fast. I think somebody could look that up and find it very quickly. When I went through Singapore, which also I liked just stopping in there, and it was around New Year's, so it was extra exciting. But so there are quicker ways possibly to go there. But for me, I think it took around all included getting from Korea through Singapore and then up. I think there was one more stop at that time, probably in Bombay and or New Delhi, and maybe it was New Delhi. But it was around 8 or 9 hours, which wasn't so bad. But I mean, you figure one overnight day and night in Singapore, so that broke it up, and it didn't seem very long at all.
If you were going to recommend Kathmandu to Koreans to go to either travel or hike, what would you say roughly about Nepal?
To recommend it. Well, the scenery is just like nowhere else in the world. And you get spring and winter in the same day, but you don't feel really cold around January, February here. So, well, I would say look up the weather, but it's like nowhere else I've ever been. The air is so clean, and people are very friendly. It's very easy to travel in. So do it. Koreans should go.
We'll be continuing
We should be continuing, yes.
So we'll finish at this moment.
We'll see.